Thank you. How are you? Good morning, Bogota. A pleasure to be here with all of you. I would like to thank Fasecolda, the Oscar and Alejandra for the cordial invitation they've extended to us to bring us here. So thank you very much. I would like to tell you today to update you on the status of FinTech and Insurtech, although not much has been researched about Insurtech in Latin America. And that is the purpose of this chat. But before beginning with the chat, I would like to tell you a bit about the context of what we have been doing, of what Finnovista is, because then we begin with the story or the update on the ecosystem. We have been working for 6 years, since 2013, with the vision of helping to transform the vision of fintech and Finnovista to create a better world in Spain and here. We created the company with the idea of facilitating, of making possible these ecosystems, and at the same time making it possible for these systems to profit from that transformation. From the beginning, we've had a very collaborative approach. We are convinced that only through the bridges that are built between SureTech and the innovators and the insurance companies in a way that is a win-win situation. Other than that, it's no good. And the idea is to facilitate the collaboration, to see the opportunity of making a business, to escalate it, and to find opportunities. That's the purpose of Finnovista. Finnovista is part of a greater network that not only covers Spain and Latin America. In 2016, so 13 years after beginning Finnovista, we realized that we had to think big, that we had to interconnect Finnovista with things that were beyond what was going on in Latin America. That's why we decided to team up with RainMeg, which is the solution between startups and corporates. RainMeg is also a partner of startup Bunkamp. We have executed our vision through 4 lines of activities. And probably many of you know us as Finu Summit because that's how we began, facilitating events where the ugly from the startups could talk with the ugly from the corporates, and that is how we began, putting partners and allies together in Mexico, in Miami, and with recurring events also in Madrid. We ended up also making presence in countries like Colombia, cities like Bogota, and also countries like Argentina and Peru. Through Fino Summit, we've been able to get together to a community of over 20,000 innovators, and we have also developed a line of programs of acceleration in collaboration with the industry, startup boot camp, particularly where we have applied more than 1,000 startups, more than 15 per year, and it has become the reference innovative platform, and it has leveraged and driven Mexico to where it is today. Very active in research. We have tried to share our knowledge and take it to the ecosystem so that the regulations are enough, so that the government knows what's going on, so that there's awareness, so that the investors know what's going on. And that is what has me here today. The report that we published with the IDB at the beginning of 2019, and the idea is to present the results of this report later on. And then finally, we've also been working on a practice of collaborative innovation where we work with our clients, which are the corporates, to innovate with innovative programs that drive the startups. So for example, the competition of BBVA Fund Talent. That is one of our big successes in the world. And we have also worked with many, many corporates. the platform of Startup Bootcamp and the FinTech and Scale. We did it because we knew that there was a sensitivity there by some visionary corporates that wanted to support the program, which is Visa, HDVC, Scotiabank, for example, Signia. And that has allowed us to actually promote the ecosystem, the Mexican ecosystem, and bring entrepreneurs from everywhere to develop their activities, their enterprises in Mexico. We've been publishing for 2 years a report of the IDB on the status of fintech in Latin America, and precisely what's at me here today is that with the insights that we can extract from this report and a little bit of updated information, let you know where we stand today. And from Finnovista, we have been working with corporates with the philosophy that what is correct is to embrace disruption, radical innovation, and make progress. And that's what our programs are all about, helping large companies, financial companies to embrace innovation and to disseminate open innovation programs. And I would like to begin before presenting the results of the report with a little bit of context. And it is that in Latin America, traditional systems are difficult to access. They are efficient, but they're also very expensive. And here there are several access to infrastructure, automatic tellers, financial services, the penetration of only 40% of the population who are bankerized, and that has led us to a line of exclusion that is leaving 50% of the population with no type of financial service. But the truth is, and we've known this for years, is that innovation is not a monopoly of the financial institutions, but of the financial companies. And we have democratized innovation. It's not only the corporates in this industry, but it belongs to the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs, for the first time a few years ago, given the whole series of factors that came up, they have been able to launch the ability to impact millions of people in very short time. That's what I was hearing the other day. It's the exponential organizations. That's what it is. I think several times you have heard this in the various previous conversations. And that's because we live in these times where abundance changes the rules of the game. Today, with a mindset, you can find a lot of things now. You find the things that is exactly what we, the entrepreneurs, do. Conquering the moon, for example, people who are motivated to change the world. That's how they get results. And their results 10 times better than what a normal player can reach. And those are the exponential players. Those are called exponential players, and that gives rise to also radical or disruptive innovation. What these technological companies are also allowed is to receive these results, and it's centered, but their approach is centered around the client, the customer. And that is what these other companies we've seen do, is to focus on a segment or a subsegment or a sub-subsegment that is very concrete and solve a terrible pain that somebody may be feeling at that point. Technology is the enabler of new businesses, which allow these entrepreneurs to generate businesses that the companies are not capable of generating. And this creates a historic moment. A historic moment was the moment of radical innovation, which is not easy to open. It's not easy to innovate. You require changing the companies in order to embrace radical innovation. And if you don't embrace them, you are left with a relevant innovation. But it's because of the speed, the ability to generate value. And so the solution is to embrace radical change, radical evolution. That is why this is such an important moment, a moment of continuous change. We are convinced that the competitiveness of the industry depends on collaboration with FinTech and with Insurtech. I know that that is maybe destroying, but we have to collaborate in order to innovate more efficiently and with less impact. FinTech, we have divided it into 11 segments, and as are these: payments or remittances, carding, PC in English, personal finance management, crowdfunding, the digital banking, financial services to companies, trading and markets, insurance, Insurtech, technological aspects, enterprise lending, and then all the loans to companies and to private individuals. According to the latest studies we have access to, right now you have 1,000 startups, and here is the distribution by country. The growth has been approximately 86% during these two past years. And I think that what is most important is that this number of startups, Mexico 1308, should not be seen as an enemy. These are 1,308 opportunities to improve to improve the core, because there is no reason to change the opportunity to care and tell and innovate better. The story of Mexico, well, it was very difficult at the beginning. We saw that Mexico in 6 years managed to create all these startups. It's an incredible an incredible growth, 119% growth. There is no doubt that Mexico has created an ecosystem, and Ignacio was talking about it, a systemic growth. Mexico also has created an ecosystem that is interconnected with the world. It's not isolated, where they have been able to attract the main programs at the world level, such as 500 startups, Plug and Play. And they've been there, but everybody has had trouble at the beginning with it. Startup Capital, Quona, ED, all those are investing in Mexico. So it's that interconnectivity, that systemic thought of the ecosystem and that interconnectivity, and also the collaborative spirit of the industry. In Mexico, the industry in the regional standard is relatively collaborative, and that has enabled the ecosystem to be driven in turn, because they have found support in the corporates. Mexico has had a growth the past 2 years of 119%. They have doubled in net Sure, I mean, some of these startups had to be destroyed, had to be spinned off, and so we actually ended up creating many more. Mexico and Brazil constitute the two main ecosystems in the region, and Brazil most probably has been more structure. It has been used more on a more prudential manner, and Brazil actually is a reference system, not but it's not going to be presented this year. Now, SureTech in Brazil has values that are the ones that are used as reference in the industry. It's led by a Colombian in Brazil, and many more. Yabolso, etc. There's many. Not in FinTech, not in Insurtech, clearly, but there are tens of companies of FinTech that are being evaluated, that are being valued between 50 and 150 million dollars, and that's proof of the consolidation of that systemic system that is being interconnected with the collaborative world. Colombia holds third place, ranks third in this list of countries within the fintech ecosystem. And I didn't say before, I just took it for granted. But when I talk about fintech, I am including SureTech, SureTech, which is also included in my opinion. So Colombia has the third position because I mean this is startup. This is a relatively new number. It was published in March of this year. And well, Colombia means 14%. That is approximately a bit below what we have in Mexico as a standard. But our impression is that precisely Colombia has a great opportunity, and that is our system. But as a system, we have to stay together, and in that sense, well, Colombia is very systemic, and we have to connect it with the world today. And Colombia has to interconnect with the rest of the world. We have to bring international programs to Colombia, international investors in Colombia. And we have to improve in terms of collaboration, cooperation, that big companies, big important companies and insurance companies to collaborate in entrepreneurship because it's a question of corporate social responsibility. In the end, the idea is that the next future companies emerge from Colombia and not from Brazil, and it is only the Colombian industry that can get to appropriate the people, the individuals in those generations. And the four main ecosystems include also the three. And also Argentina and Chile. And in total, these five main ecosystems group 88% of the startups in the region. And the truth is that that action is happening in these ecosystems. What is most incredible is growth, the relative growth of these systems. And here we're only looking at the number of startups. Unfortunately, there are no public figures where we can convert or share many other data. And we haven't even gotten to the point where the startups want to share all the information in order to publish it. But the number of startups we do have it. And it's incredible to see the explosion of fintech. Here it is. 119% in Mexico in 2 years, 65% in Brazil in 1 year, 114% in Colombia in 2 years, and 61% in Argentina. Chile, the growth is around 20 or 30%. It's way below these four countries. But of course, it's important for it to have entrepreneurs. But what is important for Colombia, for example, is to have that ecosystem, that systemic ecosystem, interconnected with the world, so that they're, in order to make sure that they're capable of structuring and investing. Also, they must have the ability to invest. We have looked at each one of the segments, and here what you see is each one of the segments of the FinTech segment that I mentioned before. They're in the order of importance, the number of initiatives out there in the market in Latin America. And clearly the most important segment has always been payments. Payments and remittances has probably been the most classical segment that's been there the longest, and it has created the largest number of startups. And then comes payments, management of entrepreneurial activities, and crowdfunding, and then we have these emerging blocks. We call them emerging because they're 6% of the total. And here we have Insurtech. Here we have the segment of technologies, entrepreneurial technologies for financial institutions or trading in markets, wealth management, scoring, fraud and identity, and finally digital banking. If we concentrate in Insurtech, what we see when we see Insurtech, according to the numbers that are available to us, we have a total of 71 startups in the Latin American system, which implies 6%. And we think that Insurtech might be where FinTech used to be in the year 2014 or 2015. The truth is, it's very difficult to know exactly when, but around that. And I think that if we compare the number of startups, which is 6%, and we compare it at the global level, with InsurTech gathers around 30% of the startups, we think that there's been a very important growth rate there. The growth of InsurTech has been very important. If we compare it against what has happened in other regions, we clearly see that the number of initiatives is going to grow. Radical innovation in insurance is going to expand. And here we have the growth of each one of these segments. There's 3 segments of the main ones that grow above 50%, which are still payments. They are still, we consider that that is the most mature system, and there's still payments, actually. The second one, exactly the same, lending. And then we have enterprise financial management. And in the emerging segments, we have 3 that grow above 150%, which are insurance, scoring idea, and fraud, and digital banking. Insurtech grows at 151%, right? Which makes it the 3rd largest growing company among a segment. And what is interesting is that it is one of the most important growing company, and we think that this number is going to be upheld. If we check it, we see that other companies of Insurtech are going to continue trying. And then we have seen from these initiatives, from these 71 initiatives, we have tried to find a way of keeping it up. And what we see is that Mexico concentrates the largest number of Insurtech enterprises with 56, then comes with second place, then comes Brazil, and then comes Colombia with 10 startups. We believe that this implies an opportunity. This represents an opportunity also for Colombia to become the best Insurtech company in Latin America because there have been no insurtechs yet. And this is year 14 of FinTech, but this is the right time to position yourself, a good opportunity for Colombia to promote these numbers. And the number of players that actually do SureTech in Colombia is not 14% or 30 or 40% of what happens in the region. And it can be done not only with local actors, but attracting insurtechs from other countries to solve actual problems that there are in the insurance industry right now. And we have measured the growth of the insurtech segment in each one of these countries. And what we have seen is that Mexico is the one that has began realizing it from the beginning. Mexico for 2 years, Brazil measured during a year, Colombia 150% in 2 years, about 100%. And here we have some of the startups of the three largest ecosystems InsurTech in InsurTech ecosystems in the country. First of all, we have Mango Life. I think, Mike, we have Mango here. We have our best company in this section, and it's doing very well in Mexico. And as we said so before, the being focused on the client is one of them is the unbundling, the laser focus on the issues in general, not just one. And here we see how they focus. Here we have measured where the fintech enterprises have focused mostly. And actually, the most important opportunity the entrepreneurs see it is the excluded market or the non-market, the market that is non-met and not met, that it includes nothing. When 46% of the startups are focusing on that market, that's what we see from here. All this is very recent. During the past 2 or 3 years, it's been an explosion, literally. And we see this when we look at the age of the startups that respond incredible. Many of them responded our surveys, and what we saw is that 43% has no more than 3%. This is a baby. This is absolutely new, and this baby is just beginning to take its first steps. And even 76%, these are companies that are below 5 years. The technology, that is what is behind everything. Entrepreneurs use technology to build business, but innovative and sometimes disruptive businesses. And when we ask them what technologies they use, when we see their exponential uses, that is where we really think, they took our advice and they're working without having a job. We're doing exponential systems in order to be able to reach the technology they need. And crossing borders is something relatively concrete. It's 32% that decide to cross their boundaries. And this obviously has a very broad universe where you have seed after seed, and you get them to know with other things. But look, 32% is already present outside of their country. And it is because the nature of the digital business allows them, obviously, adapting many elements and things like that, but it allows them to penetrate other countries. We have many of the startups of our portfolio present in 6 or 7 or 8 countries. And there's a lot of opportunities for investment. 71% is looking to invest. It's a lot of opportunities what we have in these 1,308 startups. And it's not just the number of startups. It's the value generated, where Where does Latin America invest its risk capital? Mainly in FinTech, including ShortTech. ShortTech is not a category in the LAFCA questionnaire. Those are the ones that have reviewed this study that you see here. What this indicates is that it is not a number from startups. It is a number from startups multiplied by the number of the financial ability of the owners. The financial services are becoming an opportunity for transformation in Latin America, and 88% are becoming the preferred risk investment. I have 46 seconds. I would like to leave you with 6 trends that are important in this year that is left. We think that digital banking is going to expand throughout the region. New banks are not only going to be in Brazil and entering Mexico, but that they are going to expand in the region. There are many sectors that are underserved, and this digital banking is the solution. And then we have the explosion of innovation in insurance. Let them come to an explosion of innovation. Open banking and platforms are part of that is part of the investment of the industry, and regulation has also been a key will also be a key area. They will begin to define their regulation. Regulation has been a great obstacle for many investors, a great way to give confidence and build trust among consumers and among investors. But this is still not projected in the growth rates that we've seen. But it has given certainty and trust to the investors. And finally, the future. We think it is in the collaboration among the large companies, the corporates, and the startups in order to be able to face radical innovation. Thank you very much.